How we doing, everybody? It's your guy Wardy here, and we're back at it with our second of 3 forms of content at minimum pumping out today, because we just finished a live show over the past couple hours, as yes, the Mets officially brought in flamethrowing southpaw for their bullpen, and Gregory Soto, a player that we properly predicted on the platform, as I love Soto and is fit for this team. So if you want to know my initial reaction, analysis, everything you need to know about that trade and what you're getting in Soto for this bullpen, make sure to check out that live show here on the platform after you guys found yourself watching this video, because as a surprise to absolutely nobody, with the MLB trade deadline right around the corner, the rumor mill is on an absolute frenzy right now. A lot of reporting is going on, as you guys can see beside me, Will Salmon of The Athletic, who we interviewed on the platform no later than 72 hours ago, that you guys can check out in previous pre-recorded video content, well stated here that even after landing Gregory Soto, the Mets are still in the market for not one, but multiple relievers. So I'm excited to break down not only that reporting, but ultimately what relievers could the Mets land outside of Soto himself. From there, we're going to get into more on the Diamondbacks. As we know, over the past 24 hours, it's been reported that they're actively scouting the Mets farm, and the reason why they're doing that is for a potential trade for Eugenio Suarez, Zach Gallen, and or Merrill Kelly. We'll get into all those options for the Mets, which ones are more feasible than others, and everything in between there, as well as continuing to piggyback off of the starting pitching market rumors we have that dropped over the past 30 minutes at the time of recording this video, that yes, the Mets are one of multiple teams in the market there for Sandy Alcantara. The great question is, to what degree could a trade actually be had there in the division, the way that we saw Jesus Luzardo get traded from the Marlins to the Phillies earlier this year? That's a great question that we'll expand on, everything you need to know about Sandy's game. And of course, to wrap up the show, we're going to highlight the 2 studs in the minor leagues outside of Brandon Sproat, this time in Jonathan and Noah McLean, their latest dominant stellar outings there in the minor leagues, which now begs the question, will either be considered at the major league level before the season ends? That, along with a quick preview of the San Francisco Giants matchup in San Fran beginning on later on this evening at the time this video dropping. So guys, hit that like and subscribe on your way in. Let me know all your initial reactions to the following topics that we're about to break down in this one. And as always, everybody, shout out to our amazing sponsor that make today's show happen at SeatGeek, that have you covered for all of your ticketing needs. As you guys can see here, I love the SeatGeek app because it's so easy to navigate, and their grading scale from red to green, a 1 to 10, means that you're going to make sure you get the right bang for your buck. Because if you try to purchase a ticket in the red that's in the 1 through 4 range, it's not a good bang for your buck, and you should seek tickets elsewhere in the app. But if you find plenty of that in the 7 through 10 range on the green, it's a great bang for your buck. So if you guys want to save some dough there for all of your ticketing needs, as SeatGeek has over 70,000 active events to choose from, making them the number 1 rated ticketing app in the game today, all you guys gotta do is utilize our promo code, as you guys see down there, WARDY10, for 10% off your next ticket purchase. It's linked down below in the description for you guys. It's that easy, and with Citi Field selling out throughout the weekdays against the Angels, I can only imagine how much you're probably chomping at the bit there to attend games this season heading into postseason play. So make sure you get your Mets tickets, concert show tickets, comedy show tickets, you name it, with your guy Wardy, and our promo code here, WARDY10, for SeatGeek for your next ticket purchase. But now, guys, to get right into this, let's just start with the news that you guys see beside me here from Will Salmon, as we stated earlier, because this isn't surprising, but I think the most notable thing that I see out of just this title alone is that the Mets still eye multiple additions to their bullpen here. So what does that tell you, everybody? The Mets are so far from being done, it's not even funny, everybody. And you bring in a guy like Gregory Soto. We know how much of a flame-throwing, perfect southpaw, a great contrasting option from one in Brooks Raley, where you have a guy that's more of a soft tosser, one that's more of a flamethrower, both of which can be utilized in high leverage situations. So that's appealing, but it doesn't stop just there, right? As Will expands in his article here that you guys can check out through The Athletic, we'll be on the platform again, I'm sure, fairly soon. Great friend of the platform. We just had him on again a couple of days ago, if I didn't mention that already in my latest breakdown with him, as he broke down everything that he's hearing in Mets land as to what they plan to do leading up to the deadline. And as we all expected, the Mets landed a quality lefty, and they're looking for more. So now that begs the question, what other players could the Mets find themselves in the market with, reliever-wise? And there are a couple that come to mind. I mean, an abundance that come to mind. Let's be honest. It starts with the Yoan Durans and the Emmanuel Clases. But knowing that, as David Stern stated himself and what's been widely reported since then, the Mets have a far greater appetite to land multiple solid relievers with high upside versus, say, 1 or tops 2, where you're giving up a complete haul for them, and then you have to deal with the immediate ramifications of exactly that. I think the Mets want to add a super bullpen here. That's clearly their goal, to pair what is a solid rotation with an even stronger, potentially, bullpen. And we know that entering today, outside of Brooks Raley and Edwin Diaz, the Mets really don't have a lot of stability there in that bullpen to have you ensured with confidence that they're going to get quality outs and high leverage. We've seen the the flashes with the Ryan Staneks, the Huasca Brosmans, etc. of the world. And Reed Garrett, of course, too falls in that category, but between being overworked and having inconsistencies, you would like more quality there. And what I think of quality relievers are available currently in the trade market right now, there is one that sticks out like a sore thumb to me, and he's currently with the Minnesota Twins, and he is Jeff Passan's top pick for the Mets to land a player there, and his latest ESPN article breaking down what he expects for every single team. And what do we see, everybody? In the case of Mr. Griffin Jax, he is a guy that I think checks off pretty much every box that this team would be looking for to be immediately adding to their bullpen. In case you guys are wondering what you need to know about Griffin Jax, we've broken down plenty on the platform previously, but just to reiterate once more here, everybody, you got yourself one of the nastier right-handers in all of the game. And on top of it all, he's not a free agent until 2028, as he's making just over $2 million this year on his one-year contract. But in 44 innings, he has just under 14 strikeouts per nine. No, you didn't hear that incorrectly. You heard that correct. 14 strikeouts per nine, a 2.45 walks per nine, a 4 ERA, a 3 expected ERA, a 2 FIP, and a 1.74 expected FIP, and a 1.4 WAR. The guy is unbelievably good. Look at the movement, look at the nastiness between what you get there, not only in one of my favorite pitches in his changeup, you also have the sweet piece. You have an entire multi-pitch arsenal that just is so nasty that can get you biting at any point in time. And this guy's striking out everybody at an absurd rate. Again, one of the best relievers in all of the American League this season. So, okay, guys, you mean to tell me that Griffin Jax is really that high quality of a reliever? What's it going to take to land someone like him? And it is a great question, because we're still trying to ponder and figure that out. But if the Mets are, say, not going to be able to land as quality of a Yon Duran from the Twins there, then you might as well go with your next second best thing here and Griffin Jax. Knowing that Jax has multiple years of control tells me that he won't be the cheapest option to land reliever-wise, but makes endless sense, especially as the Mets could land him not only as a true setup option for Edwin Diaz, but God forbid, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I think this is just more forward thinking for David Stearns and the Mets, is that if, say, something goes awry and Edwin Diaz is not in the bullpen in 2026, meaning that he opts out of his contract at the end of the offseason, the Mets don't want to sign him to a more lucrative deal, because let's not forget, Billy Epler signed Mr. Edwin Diaz to that $100 million contract extension. It was not David Stearns. And David is not the guy to have a big appetite to sign relievers, let alone on big long-term deals, right? So in this scenario where, say, somehow, some way, Edwin Diaz is not a New York Met next season, should that be the case, everybody, all the more reason to believe that a guy like Griffin Jax makes more sense to happen, knowing you have multiple years of control and knowing that he's a man who could be slotted in your closer role at any point in time should you wish to do so. He's nasty. Look at this stuff alongside me, everybody. He's one of the better relievers in all the American League. If you want to know more about Jax in great length, we broke him down more on his stats there and what you need to know on previous content just over the past couple days on the platform. So be on lookout for that. We even talked about Jax in my latest Mets traded line preview video with USA Today's very own MLB insider Bob Nightingale that we dropped yesterday on the platform for you guys to check out. I think I even have Jax on the thumbnail there with Merrill Kelly. Fitting, considering I'm going to talk about both those guys in today's video. But outside of Griffin Jax, when I think of controllable relievers as well, if that's the route the Mets want to go, is you landed a really nice reliever in Gregory Soto, but who's a rental. That's why you didn't give up much for him, right? You're going to have to give him more substance if you're going to land quality relievers at multiple years of control. Having understood that and knowing that the Mets may still be in the route for that outside of rentals, if the Mets lay more than just rental relievers, another arm that I would love to see them involved with here is Mr. Cade Smith of the Cleveland Guardians, right? Because Cleveland, they're still pondering what they're trying to do here, as we know. Emmanuel Clase trade rumors have been fluctuating for sure, and Cade Smith has a lot of club control in his contract, so there's no immediate urgency for a team like the Guardians to trade away a guy like him. But if they do, you'd fully expect the Mets to be in the market if they aren't already. He's at the young age of 26. He's under team control until 2030, mind you. He's not even arbitration eligible until 2027. And he's striking out guys at over 13 strikeouts per nine to 3.5 walks per nine, 43 innings this season. We're looking at just over a 3 ERA, and I sincerely apologize because audio just had to play on me for a second. We're looking at just over 3 ERA to a 2.5 expected ERA, just over a 2 FIP there and a 2.9 expected FIP. So again, another guy where there's a lot to like, a lot to certainly be appealed by when Mr. Cade Smith, if you're going to add him as a high leverage option for this Metropolitan bullpen. Now, again, because of the fact that he's under club control until 2030, he likely is not going to come cheap. So it would not be overly shocking if David Stearns has a stronger appetite for solid reliever options, because again, there's still an abundance out there, mind you, while not giving up a complete arm and a leg because you're acquiring rental reliever options. So if the David Stearns stays firm on the rentals, okay, then you can disregard this conversation. But if he does go more in the controllability of relievers, which has been long speculated that they'll at least land one guy more than 1 year of control, these are the creme de la creme, if you will, some of my favorite personal picks and guys that should be made available to varying degrees leading up to this year's deadline. Let me know your thoughts all about that in the comments down below, everybody. Who's going on from talking about reliever options for this Mets team, let's get into the latest reporting, not only regarding relievers, but much more, as I'm going to relay with each and every one of you right here, right now. Because so as you guys can see, this was Will Sammons' article with The Athletic in regards to Gregory Soto earlier, but now let's get into a little bit more here, because we did in fact see, and also a couple of things I want to make note of. John Heyman did make note of that the Mets are among teams to inquire about White Sox Luis Robert. The reason why I'm not really emphasizing that is because that's common knowledge. We have known this literally for multiple months. John just relayed that because he knows the algorithm is going to hit, especially right now. But it also is telling that if it's being relayed multiple times, as Bob Nightingale in our conversation yesterday stated, how the Mets are more interested in Luis Robert than even the Phillies, which is a big deal considering the Phillies have been long believed as one of the best suitors there for Robert. So the Mets really do like Robert. They've had this connection going on multiple months, as Bob Nightingale stated with myself yesterday on the platform. But for John Heyman to reaffirm this, among others, usually when they reaffirm these things, that's because the talks are continuing and they potentially are ongoing as we speak right now. So if you guys are a pro Luis Robert, Lou Bob, and all the upside that comes with a guy like him, let me know your thoughts and comments down below on it. We'll expand more on Robert should we find out more crucial reporting over the next couple days. And obviously, if the Mets land him, I'll be like a kid in a candy shop with excitement, because yes, I know he's fallen off a cliff since 2023. I also know that since the end of the All-Star break, he's looking more and more like himself, wants to get traded, is a clear change of scenery candidate, and has higher upside than almost anyone else that's actually eligible via trade at this year's deadline. Granted, a much lower floor than most, but that upside is significant. He's a five-tool talent when he's actually right and actually cares. And all it takes is a change of scenery, going from the White Sox and South Side to a contending team of Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, and make you say, you know what, maybe I should lock in a little bit and actually enjoy playing baseball. So that's what I got to say about Robert. As you guys can also see here too, Jose Castillo has officially been called up. The Mets did in fact send down Alex Carrillo, which was long overdue there, back to AAA. We saw Castillo have a sliver of sample size of success with the Mets there, going back to even, in that series against the Dodgers in LA while I was in attendance during that time. Castillo was getting some key outs for the Mets to a degree, but also couldn't get out of his own mess. Castillo won, I think, his first 5 or 6, if not 7 outings with the Mets before allowing an earned run. Mind you, he hasn't been productive at the major league level at all since 2018. So for the Mets to pull that straight out of their you-know-whats was impressive enough. But Castillo's back in the bullpen as a lefty option. I can't imagine that he'll be here long, but it's just something to bear in mind, guys, because we do know that the Mets will continue to be having this rotating door to a certain degree with relievers. But the goal now with who they're trying to add up until the deadline is to eliminate those constant DFAs and those constant rotation, if you will, of guys that really shouldn't be in the bigs, but are here right now because we don't really have a whole lot of other options. But to expand on from that, everybody, now let's get into the following reporting, because as you guys can see right here, right now, we see that the Diamondbacks have been scouting the Mets AA affiliate for a potential deal for Eugenio Suarez, per Andy Martino. And from Andy, he says that does not necessarily mean that talks between them are hot. Arizona also has pitching to sell. And I'm a firm believer that the Mets are not going to land Eugenio Suarez. I would love for it to happen. I'll be ecstatic if it happens, everybody. And listen, maybe the Yankees landing Ryan McMahon, taking them out on Eugenio Suarez, increases the likelihood for the Mets. We'll just have to wait and see, but I'm not going to get my hopes on it. That'll be a huge pleasant surprise should it happen. But what is far more realistic is something that you could even argue is likely, at least according to Bob Nightingale in our conversation yesterday, as the Mets going out and landing potentially one of those Arizona Diamondbacks starters between Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly. And as we broke down, Bob even stated himself, again, please make sure to check out that interview with him, guys, if you haven't already. I asked him for his trade deadline prediction, and he stated how he believes the Mets are going to land Cedric Mullins and Merrill Kelly. He thinks that that'll be the biggest splashes that they make that's separate from relievers. And I want to know your thoughts, and if you're for or against that, should something along those lines actually happen? Because when we expand on both those pitchers, everybody, let's start here with Zach Gallen. We've actually talked about him a decent amount already, because Jeff Passan, in one of his latest articles connecting the Mets to players, did state that he thought that Zach Gallen was the best starter fit for the Mets, or at least one of them. In 121 innings, Gallen has a 5.58 ERA ERA this season, a 5.03 expected ERA, and just under 5 FIP, 8.6 K per nine, or 3.4 walks per nine. Nothing about Gallen has been overly sexy this season, so why would the Mets consider him? Well, it's a couple things. It's one, Gallen is a rental. Knowing that he's a rental, you're not going to have to give up hopefully the same amount of assets as you would if he was controllable the way that Sandy Alcantara is, and we'll talk about the pros and cons that come with Sandy here in a second. But Gallen, what you love about him, this guy's an East Coast native, right? He's from South Jersey, probably grew up a Phillies fan, so hopefully, there aren't too much issues there. Phillies are not in the market for starting pitching. They have more than enough. They have an abundance there. But in the case of the Mets, they would love some quality, and Zach Gallen is having an anomaly of a bad season in the sense that Gallen, prior to this year, has been as rock solid as they come. A 3.65 ERA last year, a 3.47 the year prior, a 2.54 the year before that. So Gallen's been on a steady streak of being a rock solid star. Even going back to his rookie season 2019, he had a 2.8 ERA. Then the short in 2020 season, a 2.75. 2021, he had a 4.3, but the expected numbers were still sub 4. So what has stuck out a lot about Gallen is the home run rate. He has been given on beat balls for breakfast. He has never had a home run rate nearly as high as what he's had this season. It's actually a full home run higher than what it was a year ago. It was at 0.79 in 2024. Now it's at 1.7 and home runs per nine. So how do you eliminate the meatball? Well, one, you benefit by pitching at Citi Field, more of a pitcher's ballpark for sure, versus being in Arizona where the ball's flying, especially when he has all these constant matchups with fellow big bats from the Padres, as well as other teams that we see there out of the National League West. But then you also bear in mind that in the case of Gallen, what is so appealing about him is that you should, again, not have to give up a complete arm and a leg. He's an East Coast native that would probably enjoy and thrive to be back closer to home. And on top of it all, he goes from being with a Diamondbacks team that's on the cusp of fully selling to a Mets team that's obviously contending now and looking to win big. And Gallen, I completely understand the reservations given his up and down season. However, he is a clear change of scenery candidate as well to a certain degree like Robert, but has a greater track record to tell you that as long as a proper pitching lab, it's ironic that I'm showing you highlights of Gallen carving up the Mets. I think that's fitting, right? Let's bring him to Queens now, baby, is what Wardy has to say about that. But there's just an abundance of reasons as to why Gallen does make a level of sense for this team, and they're going to land a starter. This is a guy who has upside as good as any, in the sense that Gallen could be as good as your number 2 in your rotation right behind Kodai Senga. I firmly believe that from everything we've seen from Gallen in recent years. Now, it's just a matter of, in a change of scenery, would we be able to actually get the best out of Gallen this year, or is he going to be more the same from what he's done this season? That is a risk that I know the Mets do not want to take while giving up quality assets. So expect the Mets to land Gallen in a scenario that makes more sense because they're not giving up an arm and a leg. It would have to be more feasible for them, and you have to wonder just how much of an appetite does Major League Baseball have, buyer-wise, contender-wise, for a guy like Gallen, who's having a down year, as also on the final year of his contract. But to go on from talking about Mr. Zach there, as he continues to carve up our Mets and Tyrone Taylor that you guys saw from the highlights, let's go from that to talking about Merrill Kelly, who I also like quite a bit. I'm actually going to say something that might surprise you guys. I think I like Merrill Kelly more. And it's not just because Bob Nightingale was speaking so glowingly of Merrill. As you guys can see in these nice highlights there against the Yankees at the time. This was from this past year or so. What I like a lot about Kelly is that he's another one of these guys that can come in and just be as rock solid as possible. Like, Kelly has a track record to tell you that he's going to be a dog and he's perfect right in the heart of your rotation. And Kelly could be as good as anywhere in your 1, 2, 3 for sure, while we're speaking your number 4, right? Because right now he's at 8.7 K per nine this year to a 2.7 walks per nine, a 3.3 ERA, a 3.8 expected ERA, a 3.4 FIP, and a 3.5 expected FIP. I love those numbers. Then you look at 122 innings of 21 starts there for the veteran right-hander at the age of 36. I understand Kelly's not going to blow you away at all with Arsenal, but he's just all reliable. When you think of a guy who could be a playoff performer there, eat innings for you, you think of Merrill Kelly. And Kelly would bring stability to this rotation. That certainly wouldn't hurt when you look at guys like Clay Holmes, who you don't even know if he's going to be able to be a true starter for you down the stretch before the season ends. So if the Diamondbacks are going to make a trade with the Mets for any player, I would firmly believe and honestly say that Merrill Kelly probably makes most sense here. You know, I would like Suarez a lot, but he's going to come out of King's ransom. I'm not expecting the Mets to go there. Zach Gallen, I wouldn't be opposed to at all, and I would certainly welcome, but I can see why maybe the Mets wouldn't want to give up the necessary assets even as a rental because he himself has had such an underwhelming season. Then you look at someone like Merrill Kelly, who is also a rental, but the difference is that he is a rental who has a lot to give right now and hasn't skipped a beat. There's nothing about Merrill Kelly that should tell you, oh no, Merrill Kelly's going to be a bad pitcher for us, especially in a pitcher's park. there's a lot of belief that a guy like Kelly could find himself thriving in this Mets rotation and would bring plenty stability. So Mets fans, definitely let me know all your thoughts on the front of Merrill Kelly, Zach Allen, Eugenio Suarez. As we know, Mets prospects there in Double A especially have been scouted big time because the Rumble Ponies have been a wagon this year. Even High A in Brooklyn, guys like AJ Ewing, we know has been scouted heavily because Ewing has been a stolen base machine. He's been such a fantastic five-tool talent this year. I do not want to see him traded. He's one of the more under-radar prospects for the Mets this year that we followed. We've been following the platform. We know very well how well AJ Ewing is having of a season, as is the case with guys like Jacob Reimer as well, who's been thriving with Carson Bench, as they both have been dominating, doing really good things there for the Rumble Ponies since being moved up from the Cyclones earlier this season as well. But Mets fans, let me know out of those three Diamondbacks players, which one do you think is most feasible for a trade should it happen, and why? And folks, thank you as always for hitting that like and subscribe on your way in. And before we get set, as we have a lot more to break down here in the sense of not just what's going on with the D-backs, but Sandy as well as the prospects and that San Francisco Giants preview. But before we get into today's video, folks, I'm really excited to announce today's sponsor, because not only is it just because they're a sponsor, but they're a product that I've been actively utilizing, and they have certainly helped me, especially when it comes to calming down. That is our great friends here at InTheCloud, because InTheCloud, folks, if you're 21 and older, just like me, you are eligible to utilize their products here, and they have you covered on all things hemp-derived THC. And as someone who personally likes to utilize these products mainly for winding out at night, getting set to go to bed versus having a restless mind at night that I otherwise find myself having, these products have been absolutely clutch, and I hope you find yourself having interest in these should you go out to seek them, because they have a variety of ones to choose from. The ones I've been utilizing the most by far right now are their InTheCloud Bliss gummies before bed. They are 5 milligrams each. I usually utilize around 10 milligrams each of the THC, and they get the job done for me around 30 to 40 minutes, and you really start to feel them kick in. I'm kind of sinking in my bed in the best way possible. They're just so comfortable. I don't know how else to explain it. You also have their rope gummies as well, their THC products that you can utilize. This is out of 150 milligrams. They have popping candy as well. No, I'm not joking, where as soon as you pop in your mouth, they're going to crack just the way that you would see other candy do. And this is the nighttime version. This is the one that I personally have utilized, and I did like quite a bit. It's very sweet. Haven't utilized the daytime one yet, and there are also other gummy versions, whether you're going to have their various soda flavors like orange soda here, these little gummies, or you guys are going to have green apple. They also have strawberry, grape, you name it. And if you're more of a purist, maybe you'd like to go more of the smoking route, they have pre-rolls as well. So again, guys, why do I love InTheCloud so much, utilizing the products? Well, as someone who's not really trying to get as uplifted, even though you can certainly do that with these products, I like to have a calm situation happen, getting set for bed. And that's where these in particular, and these so far from all the products that I've utilized, have really gotten the job done for me. So if you guys have interest, especially in hemp-derived THC products, whether it's to be uplifted, elevated, or more like me, the latter, which is to be calm, cool, and comfortable, getting set for a good night's sleep, they have you covered, everybody. So head over there with our friends at InTheCloud. Again, you got to make sure you are 21 or older. That's very important, and that way you can float above the stress here, because InTheCloud is giving away to all new customers 25% off their first order plus free shipping. Again, to all new customers, that is 25% off plus free shipping. Just utilize our promo code that you guys see right down there at Wardy, or click the link down below in the description to utilize said code. That's InTheCloud.co, INDACLUD, I should say, .co. Use code WARDY one more time, everybody, for free shipping plus 25% off your first order. And when you order, make sure you fill out that little quick survey that they have, because it really helps support the platform, as obviously it helps keep InTheCloud sending you the good stuff. I'm sure you're not going to complain about that if you find yourself enjoying the products. So go ahead, tell your future self you got it covered, then grab a gubby and vibe out with our great friends at InTheCloud. Shout out to them once more. Alrighty, folks, as we continue on our discussion here, let's get into where the Sandy Alcantara news dropped and what we got to say about it. Because as you guys can see, this comes courtesy of Mike Puma there of the New York Post, which states the following: the Mets are among teams that have checked in on Sandy Alcantara, and the asking price is steep. The Mets haven't ruled out adding a starter, but they realize that it's going to be tough given the market. And that does make sense. We always knew this in the case of the Mets adding a starter. It ain't going to be easy. It ain't going to be easy really for any team, unless you're willing to kind of shell out more than what you otherwise want to do. I mean, this is no different than the offseason when negotiations go on, and the deadline's going to get spicy, because you're going to see teams act in desperation versus teams that are a lot more even-keeled. And David Stearns is very even-keeled. He's usually calm, cool, and collected. He's not the type to want to give up a king's ransom, especially for a Sandy Alcantara right now that, outside of his velocity and club control and track record, there's really nothing to say to suggest that the Mets need to go out of their way for this guy. And as much as I wouldn't be opposed to Sandy Alcantara for this rotation, am I going to lose sleep over if the Mets don't land him? No. I think the only way that happens is if the Mets don't land him and he goes to, say, the Chicago Cubs or the LA Dodgers for, a bag of baseballs, basically, in return, the way that I kind of felt was the case in Josh Naylor's return there from the trade that had him going from Arizona to Seattle, and what was the corresponding moves going the other way. As long as something like along those lines doesn't happen, then, I'm certainly down for a guy like Sandy at the right price. And before Mets fans go out of their way to say, oh, the Marlins will never trade in the division, tell me you don't pay attention without telling me you don't pay attention. What did the Marlins and the Phillies do right before the season began? Oh, yeah, they traded Jesus Luzardo, a young, controllable, high upside lefty who I was advocating for the past 2.5 years for, that the Mets didn't do after the Marlins initially tried to make that trade happen for one Brett Beatty 2 years ago under the Billy Epper regime. But, well, we won't talk about that. That's a discussion for another day. What is the discussion is the fact that Sandy is a guy that's been long connected to this New York Mets team. This is not surprising to see that. But it really is going to come down to price for someone like him. And I do not believe the Mets would have to pay a huge tax because they're trading in the division, because if Peter Bendix, the leader in charge for the Marlins, has the same mentality as he did when he traded Luzardo away, then this shouldn't be any different for a less quality starter, right? Look at that Phillies return that they gave up there for Jesus Luzardo. Newsflash, it wasn't a whole lot, right? Maybe the Marlins will develop those prospects into something, but it was nothing overwhelming from what the Phillies gave up farm-wise. Now you mean to tell me that it would be a higher asking price for a worse pitcher because he has club control too? Miss me with that nonsense. That's just all try and take advantage of the bidding war, knowing that the Marlins don't need to trade Sandy technically, because they could add him into the offseason and then let that be that, and then maybe see if his value will be higher then or heading into next season, even if they really want to do so. But then you have the issue of him being more of a rental versus currently he has a 2027 option on his contract. But expand more on Sandy Alcantara, everybody. Let's go ahead and let's do exactly that. As you guys can see also from some of the clips beside me, again, when Sandy's right, he's nasty. There's no denying that. Like, the guy's a flamethrower. He's a dog. Feels like yesterday Don Mattingly was drilling this man into the ground for multiple years for that Marlins rotation because he just wanted his horse to be out there, which is what led Sandy to be a Cy Young caliber pitcher. But now, coming back from Tommy John surgery, he just has not been that same guy. In 104 innings, he's at an absurd 6.6 K per nine, a 3.3 walks per nine. Hate the K to walk ratio. He's given up home runs at a higher rate than he ever has since his rookie season in 2017. And he has a 6.66 ERA, which I don't like for multiple reasons, as well as an expected ERA of 5 and a FIP of 4.48 and an expected FIP of 4.41. Good for a .7 WAR season. Sandy's a shell of what he typically is, performance-wise, is what we're seeing right now. So why would the Mets go out of their way to trade for someone like him? It's the same exact reason as to why they would trade for someone like Luis Robert. Change of scenery candidate, clearly still has the stuff, has just not had the success that he's looked for this season with the Marlins. But Sandy's been able to stay healthy. That's important. He's had the innings, obviously, and he's a guy that a lot of people in this Mets clubhouse, headlined by Lindor, Soto, etc., that we spoke about actually a decent amount, everybody, for you guys to check out, has a lot to do with the fact that, yeah, this is absolutely a guy that multiple players in the Mets organization would love to see land in Queens. And I would love Sandy at the right price, because you think of a guy, what's his floor? His floor is a guy who isn't even a playoff starter for you. And his ceiling is a guy who could be as good as anyone in your 1, 2, 3 if he really rears back and gets back to being more of the Sandy of old. I think a change of scenery, a more analytically driven pitching staff, the way that the Mets have with Jeremy Hefner, Eric Yeagers, Daisy Drewskill for their lab, I really think that they could get the best out of him. But at what price? If it's really a steep price for Sandy, I'm not going to say that the Mets should go out of their way for that. If the Mets are going to trade any steep price for a starter, it should not be a Sandy Alcantara. In my opinion, it should be, if you're going to go the lengths to do that, this is where things get a little dicey. Would you consider that for a rental, right? Where does Dylan Cease fall on your radar as a Mets fan? Or does Merrill Kelly, Zach Gallen fall on your radar, right? Joe Ryan is the pipe dream from the Twins, but he ain't going anywhere, so we don't even need to bother to have that discussion, at least as of July 25th, 2025, should anything drastically change from now up until the deadline. But what is not changing is the fact that there's a lack of urgency from the Miami Marlins to trade someone like Sandy. And I would rightfully argue that a guy like Edward Cabrera is the kind of guy that you shell out more of the farm for than Sandy Alcantara. Edward has higher upside, in my opinion, this season. He's been a far superior pitcher this season. The Mets have been linked to Edward as well, as they've been in the market for pretty much every starter imaginable. As they're gauging the market, they're checking in and they're having at least preemptive talks. It's just a matter of how they went deep in talks with any of these teams or not. We really do not know at this point in time. It all will be relayed either after the fact or will not be relayed at all. But what we know, at least in the interim, everybody, is that the Mets could land another starter. But if you're going to land a starter, it should be someone of significance. I'm just not exactly sure if Sandy checks off the boxes for what is a premium price for a player that has not pitched consistently well for the vast majority of the season. He was rock solid in his latest start that we saw a couple days ago, no denying that. But at the same time, we need a larger sample size. You know what I mean? Like, Sandy's been nails for multiple years, so I think that's what you're betting on as well. But do I think the Mets have to go out and land him the way that I think that there's some other starter options out there that I would say, you know, you bend the knee a little bit more? Yeah, I don't think you need to do that. That's just my humble opinion, at least. Would I be opposed if they landed Sandy? No. Would I be opposed to if they landed him by giving up a king's ransom for it? Yes, I would be. So hopefully that does not come in fact to reality. And if he does come here, it's at a more reasonable cost than what is currently being relayed through the grapevine from Mike Puma of the New York Post, among others. But folks, that is not the only thing that we got to talk about on the rumor and rumbly front, because as I stated earlier and what you guys see down below, there's rumblings going on with Starling Marte. Can't forget that. That's really important for us to touch on as well. So let's go ahead and get into those Starling Marte rumblings for those that are interested. I'm actually going to head over here just to my account for a second. Let's scroll down. Follow me at WardyNYM on X should you guys have interest, or our main like official WardyNYM account where it's for, you know, all things Mets versus just my personal opinion stuff at the WardyNYM with roughly 71,000 there on X. Give us a follow if you haven't already. Thank you kindly for that. Also, make sure to check out our Wardy Day tickets that are still available in the description down below. Less than 10. It'll be pinned in the comments as well for anyone that has interest. If you don't know what that is, that's going to be a full game hangout with your guy Wardy there at Citi Field August 1st. Mets Giants, day after the deadline. Fireworks night. We're doing a live show there in our gorgeous left field suite that you guys will see, our lounge area, and we'll have pregame on-field access, and you're getting an $18 drink voucher, all because Wardy loves you so much for taking part in the event. But as you guys can see here, let's scroll down for a second. Let's go down here even more, because I know that this happened from a couple early hours ago. Here we go. Mike Puma, as you guys can see right here, have been asking about Starling Marte. Teams have been asking about Starling Marte. I replied, Marte trade rumblings are underway, folks, as you guys can see there. And funny enough, that video that I was supposed to drop earlier there said jam-packed Mets video coming. That's this one. And I've had to change the topics like 4 times because a lot has come out since what I was initially planning to record. It was the Gregory Soto stuff and then a whole lot more from there. But all right, the Marte stuff, very interesting. Teams are nipping on the heels for star-studded Starling, who's batting over 270 right now, getting closer to that 800 OPS. Now, why would the Mets trade Starling Marte? Here's your simple answer, everybody. The Mets would trade Starling Marte without hesitation for a reliever of quality, and also while making sure that they're not putting a hole in place there at that DH position. I promise you guys that as much as the Mets love the clubhouse character that is Marte, and as much as Juan Soto has built a great friendship and relationship with him, that will not get in the way from the Mets operating as a business and doing what they think is right for the organization. Let's also not forget that what did the Mets do the entire offseason? They shot Marte and tried so hard to trade him. They were actually in trade negotiation back at this past December's MLB winter meetings for one Hunter Harvey, who was a younger, basically similar profile to Ryan Stanek, and not only how he looked with the long hair, but also in the flamethrowing right-hander that he was, just had more team control for Marte. Those trade talks fell through. Since then, Hunter Harvey has been placed on the 60-day injury list because Buddy's been cooked with injuries all year long, sadly. But Marte, one right, now back from injury. As I told you guys plenty, this is the kind of guy that could hit 280 in his sleep. So what I will say is that, do I want the Mets to trade Marte just for the sake of trading him? No, not at all. I think that hurts team morale. I think Marte means enough in this clubhouse with not only his personality, but clearly how he's voted well with Juan Soto and other players, other young players, to really be that veteran mentor leader, if you will, especially for the fellow Dominican players as well. That's been a very positive thing, and I don't think that you should break that away just for the sake of doing it. However, if you do trade Marte and you land more in his strength, then I think it makes a level of sense. Because as awesome as Marte has been in limited sample sizes this year, don't act like Marte can't be replaced, because he absolutely can be. And the Mets can not only consider replacing him internally with an abundance of their young options that they have, but also considering what they may do trade-wise for an outfielder that will then make, say, a Jesse Winker, when he does return from injury, more of that true getting everyday reps at DH. Maybe they consider Vientos more of a lock. And here's my argument argument, actually, everybody, this is where it even makes more sense. Marte profile, Vientos profile is best as your DH option, batting against both righties and lefties in DH, especially with Winker out right now, right? You do not want Vientos in the field much. If you add a center fielder, if you trade Marte, it allows McNeil to play more of his premier position of second base while getting still some reps in center field. It limits the abilities of Tyrone Taylor, which is what you should do, because Tyrone's defense and base running are elite, but his hitting has been so unbelievably horrendous over the past 2 months that it's really hard to justify putting him out there every day, let alone every couple of days right now at this rate. Then you add in the fact that if you have Vientos full-time DH, Beatty at third, the way that the Mets want to be, Jeff Mainley at second, and say Luis Robert, or even to a certain degree a Cedric Mullins, but others in center, maybe Ramon Laureano, even though we haven't heard any linkage with the Mets there yet, then you've really evened out your club, and you added a reliever on top of it as a corresponding move for Marte. Sign me up. That's where it makes sense to trade Starling Marte, everybody. It does not make sense to trade him just for the sake of a dump, and then when he's, mind you, final year of his contract, that makes zero sense for this Mets team. So, is it a guarantee that Starling Marte is going to be traded? No, of course not, everybody, but if it does, those are the following reasons as to why that would happen. It would be for roster construction, keep Beatty at third, give McNeil more second base reps as long as you add another outfielder, potentially for more center field bulk. And then reliever-wise, if you land someone of decent as a win-win trade potentially, in the case of Marte, for a reliever, then I think that's right up the alley of what the Mets would be looking for. Let me know, guys, if you're for or against a potential Starling Marte trade in the comments down below. And thank you guys kindly for that, because we have to get on to now a topic that I'm very excited about, because these boys just continue to dominate everybody. They just continue to look so good. Can we please talk about what's going on the farm right now with the AAA Syracuse Mets and Noel McLean? Another fantastic outing for McLean. 7.1 innings, a 4-hit, 0-walk, 2-earned-run ball, 6 strikeouts on 85 pitches. He's now just around a 3 ERA in AAA this year. He has a 2.57 total ERA from AA to AAA this season, and he's giving you length. McLean has done anything and everything imaginable to prove himself and his worth there at the AAA level. I am firmly confident in finally saying that I expect one of McLean or Sproat to 100% impact the Mets at some point here before the season ends. These are two high quality of options that the Mets have in the farm to not consider. And I think how the Mets are going to consider one of these guys is going to be either A, as a true dominant reliever right away, the way that we saw David Stearns do it back with the Brewers with guys like Brandon Woodruff, Freddie Peralta, and Corbin Burns when they were making their initial MLB debuts and impacts, or it's going to be in a piggyback situation with Clay Holmes, which I think makes so much sense, as Clay has been limited with his innings. How far is he going to go this year? How consistent is he going to be? Makes endless sense if you have Clay Holmes in a piggyback situation with a Noel McLean to eat, say, 3-4 innings. A Brennan Sproat to, say, eat 3-4 innings. Either way, Noel McLean has proven everything and then some at the minor league level to tell you that this man should already be considered for the major league level. If it somehow, some way does not happen this year, I promise you, McLean will be in spring training competing for a rotation spot, rightfully so, everybody. So, guys, I definitely want to know your thoughts about McLean. The man has just been a man possessed. He has been so good, so consistently good that we have seen in the Mets minor leagues, and I am eating that up for breakfast. I hope it continues, because the same way that a guy like McLean has just been unbelievably dominant pretty much all season long, Brandon Sproat for the past month and a half has finally been dominating for AAA Syracuse as well, which is so awesome to see. But outside of what you've been getting there, and not only Sproat, McLean, guys, we got to talk about the creme de la creme, the best of them all, you could rightfully argue, and Mr. Jonathan. First and foremost, everybody, I want to give a huge shout out to my friend Ernest Dove. For those that don't know Ernest Dove, he covers solely Mets prospects on X and on YouTube. Steve Cohen has actually stated how much he loves his work, especially, which is really cool. Ernest has a YouTube channel called I believe it's called the Dove Report, the Mets Dove Report, which is his daily or weekly prospect reporting, and he has great relationships with players in the minor leagues, including Mr. Jonathan. And he actually just interviewed Jonathan in a video that dropped over the past hour of the time of this one coming out. So if you guys want to check that out, head over there to that YouTube channel. Again, he did not ask me to do this. This is just out of the kindness of me, because I love Ernest. Very good guy in the Mets community. Great with his prospect coverage. I've had privilege of having conversations with him that we've talked about in the past already. And he's a guy who I really, really think would be a perfect guy to put on a pedestal when talking about prospects, because he had a great conversation with Jonathan. As you guys can see right there, Ton is disgustingly good. Another fantastic outing for Jonah, where he goes 5 innings of 79 pitch ball, 3 hits, 0 walks, 1 earned run, 6 strikeouts, a 1.72 ERA. He has more strikeouts than any other eligible pitcher in the minor leagues currently, and the guy is destined for greatness. I mean, that breaking ball is nasty. He gives me Tim Lincecum vibes and his follow through there, and his windup, especially, and for a smaller statured right-hander that, mind you, is top of 96, 97 on the gun now. So the velo's only getting better with Todd. This is a kid that I really do not think needs the AAA level much at all to have success. But if he does hit the AAA level, that I wish him the absolute best there before the season ends. He is just one of these arms that I so desperately want to see him consider at the major league level, because he's been carving up the top prospects in baseball in AA all season long. It's about time that we see a change there and at the major league level. If it ain't this season, it most certainly will be next year. Jonah Todd has been a stud, guys, and I would love to hear all your thoughts on Jonah and what was another fantastic outing for him. Like I said, what hasn't Jonah Todd done this season is a greater question there for people that are wondering what's been going on with him there in the minor leagues now. And let me expand on this, everybody. He continued 38 and 89 innings. Absolute bulldog is Mr. Jonah Tong, guys. Love to see what Jonah is doing. But folks, that is going to do it there for the prospect talk. We're not going to do a complete deep dive. We'll talk more on prospects in the coming days. A lot of stuff's going on right now, obviously, in Major League Baseball with the trade deadline leading up. So what do I have to leave you with, everybody? What I'm going to leave you with is as follows. We're going to give you guys a quick, nice little breakdown of the Mets matchup beginning on tonight against the San Francisco Giants. It should actually be starting in not even 2 hours at the time of this video dropping, but I had to get this video out. It was imperative that this time tomorrow, we're going to have a lot of other things to talk about in Mets land that are good as well. Let's see this. As we see, everybody, as follows. Game 1, David Pearson versus Robbie Ray tonight, right? The battle of the Southpaws. Robbie Tight Pants, if you know, you know, versus David Pearson, both with sub-3 ERAs. Hopefully Pearson wins that Southpaw battle, but it's going to be a big one. The Giants are obviously fighting hard to be in a playoff spot this year, and you can understand why. But as we get in here, and I actually do apologize, the David Peterson and Robbie Ray matchup is for Saturday night. Not tonight. My apologies, everybody. Tonight is Clay Holmes. Clay, let's see what he can do. Facing off against Logan Webb. This could be a pitcher masterclass for the Giants and a disaster class for the Mets, unless they can hit tonight there. And Oracle, I'm always going to call it Oracle there. Love the Coke bottle and everything that San Fran has to provide, at least on the baseball front. Can't say too much about other things. But as we get into the series finale of that matchup then, it's to be determined there for the Giants, but it is a 1.79 ERA for Kodai Senga as he toes the rubber and tries to bounce back after what was a very uncharacteristic 3-inning, 4-earned run outing that we saw there last time out. So Mets fans, fingers crossed that the boys can at least secure themselves this series victory. Take 2 out of 3 in San Fran. You got a huge gauntlet against the Padres starting next week there right before the deadline as well. All the more reason to try to get on a roll here. The Mets are on a roll as we speak right now on a little bit of a heater, a 4-game heater to be exact. Let's see if they can continue that mentality and what's a gauntlet of a road trip for a Mets team right now that has not played good baseball on the road. Let's not forget, everybody, the Mets have actually been one of the worst teams in the National League among contending teams on the road. They're 22 and 28 this season, so they have a lot more work to do. No better way to get started than to beat up on some top fringe contending teams there out of the National League, the way that the Giants are trying to crack a playoff spot there, at minimum, out of the wild card. Mets fans, I'll do it for our latest Metropolitan video. Thank you all so much for watching as we had so much reports to break down. If you guys found yourself enjoying this content, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe on your way out. It really does mean a lot. And stay tuned again, Wardy Day 2025, our first event at Citi Field where you can hang out with your guy Wardy for the entirety of the ball game. That'll be official on August 1st there. Tickets are still available, but we have less than 9 left, so be on the lookout for that. And everyone who has purchased a ticket, thank you so much. I'll be reaching out in the coming days to give you guys an updated info list on when you should be attending the ball game, where you can meet me, and where you have to meet me for us to then do the pregame on-field photo op. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you all soon. As always, no matter what, let's go Mets. Peace out.